welcome to episode 369 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, a place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the creator of the webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And the 1982 East Yorkshire Yo-Yo champion, Mr. Tony Esmond.
Oh, yeah, I'm not a fucking northerner. 69.
Let's just leave that. It was 369, Tony.
Yeah.
That joke
counts. There's three of us, and we're doing a 69. I went to.
How's that possible?
I don't know. I went to Bottom Hill today.
Like a link in a chain.
No, human centipede.
Yeah.
I went to a pub today in a place called Bottom Hill, and throughout the meal I had with my son, who finds his father very unfunny and tiresome, I kept going, Bottom Hill, like that all the way through the meal. Excellent. Just to amuse myself.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I bet he was very pleased to be there.
Over the moon to be there, he was.
And we are over the moon to be here, recording this show for you lovely people. Thank you for joining us, folks, as always. We're going to be talking about comics and nonsense.
Exciting guest.
Who knows what else? And we'll get to the guest in a minute. But we're more, I say we're more alive today. But we're all sort of, I mean, Tony might have sunstroke.
I think I have.
Yeah. I mean, the sun has sort of gone away a bit for me, but how are you doing, Dan?
Know. Fine, yeah, not too bad.
Are you still
I was saying like a pub garden all day, though, so it gets you, didn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Are you weeding?
I was defrosting a freezer today, so that's utter hilarity.
Oh, I tell you what.
You never stops.
Yes, you punk rock dude.
And I was checking on my spring onions earlier.
Have you got spring onions? You have not.
Yeah, I've got a little garden.
Have you got an allotment? No,
I haven't got an allotment.
Having an allotment's cool, isn't it, suddenly? Do you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, some people with allotments would say it's always been cool.
Yeah, that's true.
You know.
I kind of like the old school allotment people, not these
sort of people say,
wave.
oh yeah, here's this pop culture thing and why they made comics cool. Hey man, they've always been cool.
Yeah, exactly. Always like people who go, have you heard of this band? You probably won't have heard of them, called The Pixies.
Yeah.
Go, yes, I have. I fucking heard of them when they were coming out. You know, it's like that, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
When people were growing vegetables and saying in their garden, say, if it all falls to shit, I've got that to fall back on. What, like 1 meal's worth of vegetables?
Yeah.
Let's see through the dark days of sort of Roman Mad Max gangs.
Yeah. Yeah, just murdering people for turnips.
Yeah, cannibal gangs. It's all right.
It's all right. Yeah, we're vegans. Welcome to the show, everyone. And
we had a good moan before we started recording as well, didn't we? We're only old fuckers today.
Yeah. But we're glad to be here with you.
And do you know what isn't moany?
What? What's that?
What? Comic House.
Comic House.
Oh, who are they, Tony?
They're the Netflix for comics. Vince.
They are indeed.
Yes.
And they are our lovely sponsor. If you go to
it's like that.
House,
We prepared that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys are getting better at like batting it back to me once I
feeding it. Yeah,
they used to be like, they are house, but now we're a well-oiled machine. And although we actually went off track on the sponsorship ad within the first 5 seconds, Comic House are a lovely website and service who love indie comics as much as we do. If you go to comichouse.com, there's a huge selection of titles on the website. Lots of people are sort of self-publishing and sort of it's another avenue to get your work out there, your comics people can purchase from the website. They also have an app which is like, as Tony said, Netflix for comics. It's only £3 a month though, and
that's well cheap, Vince.
It is completely very cheap. And unlike Netflix, who seem to spend absorbent amounts of money on shite that no one will watch.
Selling Sunset, that's classic.
Comic House are just collecting loads of great indie comics from all over the world. And if you're an indie comics creator, like you listening right now, you could put your stuff on there and add to the enormous library of indie comics that are already on there. What's on there, Dan?
Well, not only can you read the digital comics, you can also buy the comics on the site. So some that appear on the app and you can buy. We've got Of the Same Coin Issue 1, Viper by myself, Iron Dynasties Volume 2, Glass City, Transgenesis, And It Snowed, Tesla Man Fights Dirty, Grey Issue 2, and The Hoards of Surrey, which I'm going to be giving a sequel shout out to in the Kickstarter a bit later in the show.
Cool, and DUI 1 is on there. So if you read that, you're raising money for a good charity cause. There you go. Go and do
Raising
that.
money for charity.
Yeah.
Which is always good. So, go on to comichouse.com, find out more about it. There's a 14-day free trial, so you can test it out. But, if you're watching your pennies and sometimes you have to cut back on your pull list, go on to Comic House because there's loads of comics that you can read.
Right.
More on that later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and thank you to Pete and the Comic House guys for supporting us as always.
Yeah. It was Pete's birthday recently as well, wasn't it?
Oh, happy birthday.
Belated happy birthday.
Pete.
Do you want to bring up the sad news first? Do you want to do that one first?
Yes, that's always.
Do we want to do that pre-interview?
I don't mind. Whatever you fancy, babes. What's going to be easiest?
I think actually, we should talk about it now because it is a very sad bit of news.
Yeah.
Take it away, Tony.
Thanks, man. So this week we lost there seems to be a few people falling, doesn't it? We lost another titan of comics this week in Alan Grant. I don't think anyone who listens to this won't know who Alan is. Whether it be for his 2000 AD and UK comics work or for his Batman and Lobo stuff in America. And the dude was all over it. He was still one of my favourite Batman writers. One of the best, if not the best, Dread writer. Just an amazing dude with a lot going on. And I think I probably. A lot of people will say that. They'll say about his history of comics, and where he started and what he did and that sort of thing. But I think you'd speak as you find, don't you, around comics creators a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And, I've often told the story about being a young 12-year-old at a UCAC. And a bigwig writer came on with his handler and told the audience of, blokes all older than me who I was sort of very intimidated about being. My dad had dropped me off, and said, don't speak to this creator unless he's at a signing. Unless he's, don't speak to him in the loo. Don't speak to him in the corridor. We got all this. And then Alan Grant came on his own, sort of swaggered his way onto the stage. And he said, I'm here for you guys. Speak to me whenever you want to speak to me. That's why I'm here. And I remember him getting a huge cheer, and I did. I ended up, as a 12-year-old, I spoke to him and he was super nice to me and very kind and spoke to me like I was an adult. And, all I could think about at the time, same as now really for us, but all we could think about at the time was comics, and he was very kind to me, and it's a huge loss.
That's cool.
Really nice dude. I think last time we saw him was at the 40th.
Yes.
I got him to sign a couple of comics for me there. But yeah, real shame.
Yeah.
I was scanning through some of his past works, and Block War. I didn't realize he'd done that. That's a fucking amazing one.
Yeah.
Block of the War, City of Damned, the fucking Judge Child.
This stuff like this still continues and is used as stories now.
Yes, it's like the very foundations of Dread. They're built on those stories.
Yeah, the stuff he did with Bray Foggle on Batman as well, Detective Comics. They even created a comic for him, Shadow the Bat. They're just incredible stuff. I've got a page of that on my wall here.
Oh, really?
Love it. Yeah.
I haven't read it in ages, but I love the fucking Batman Judge Dredd.
Yeah, I think that paid for a house, didn't it? I think pretty much it was such a good seller.
So didn't he come up with what character did he come up with? It was Anarchy,
Zaz, who appears.
Zaz.
Yeah. The ventriloquist, I'm going to say, was that?
Okay.
Not sure.
Yeah. He's got him listed as that. I think it might be.
Yeah, one that maybe him and Grant,
that one.
him and Ragnar, I think, created that one maybe. Yeah, but that's a great character as well. Zaz appeared in one of the Nolan movies, didn't he?
Yeah.
He was the bloke from that band who I can never remember his name.
They've used Zaz quite a few times. I think in TV shows and stuff as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
popped up in Gotham a lot.
Yeah, but he was also writing that the Demon series that I love.
Yeah, you love that
so
series,
much.
didn't you?
Yeah.
And the Bogeyman, which obviously got a Robbie Coltrane movie back in the 90s.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So an absolute Tyson and a legend.
I think there's a few creators could follow his lead and be nice to people like he was, Put back, because he had that little festival, didn't he, up in his hometown and everything, and put back into what you're given, and a good dude.
He absolutely mugged off that geezer in front of him by saying that. Makes him sound like great for
I know,
doing that.
He's a bit punk rock for that. Yeah. My local comic shop in Colchester, it was when I was a kid. He used to go in and do quite a lot of signings there. I think he must have been local or something.
That's great.
We used to see him in there quite a lot, and he'd come in and chat to everyone. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah,
good. So a real shame. Yeah.
Different landscape nowadays.
Yeah. So just if you've got an Alan Grant book on your shelves or lying around, pick it up and give it a read.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Cool.
So yeah, nice shout out there, Tony, to an absolute legend. And from that to this week's focus, we're not going to mess about with lots of us ranting and rambling.
There's lots of conspiracy theories out there we don't need to talk about now.
We don't need to do all that. But what we do need to do is just deliver unto you. I don't know why I'm saying it like that. This week's interview, which is with friend of the show, an amazing artist who's just rightfully getting all the success he deserves. But as well as all that, he's just an absolute lovely bloke. Who are we talking about? Well, surely you know by now we're talking to Martin Simmonds.
Hey.
Okay, I said it briefly in that sort of miniature intro there, so there's not going to be a long-winded intro, and he understands because he's a friend of the show. But we're very pleased to be joined by artist, the critically acclaimed, the Department of Truth. It's the one and only Martin Simmonds. Hello, sir.
How you doing?
Good stuff, mine.
So professional already. With
Oh,
the
so
hello.
Underplayed.
So,
It's not beforehand, is it, or anything?
We're not putting out anything we talked about before this because we've all been in trouble.
No. We've got all the glorious behind the scenes gossip and truth. But what is
With
the
Martin
truth?
Hollywood.
What
We're calling
is
him
the
Hollywood
truth?
now. aren't we?
Yeah, Hollywood Simmonds. No, 'cause that may stick whenever people see him at a show. But of course, you know, we've known you for a few years now, Martin. So let us be the first to say immediately that it is all very much well deserved.
Very much so, man. Yeah.
Everything that you're doing.
Yeah, we're so chuffed for you, man. Yeah, killing it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Thanks. Cool. I mean, yeah, it's been a bit of a whirlwind, to be honest. But especially with the pandemic and stuff, it's a very weird time when this all kicked off. But yeah, thank you.
I know we were talking about it. We were talking about MCM. Weren't we? So you've had a kid, we've had the pandemic, you've moved house, and you're doing like this kick-ass book all in one go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. So we had our second child. Our second child was born, funny, the same week that the first issue of Department of Truth came out. And then he spent a month in the neonatal intensive care unit.
Oh, mate.
So it's like
wow.
it's a super intensive time.
Yeah.
But really intense. But yeah, it's kind of a weird one. And I'm obviously really happy that Jesse had been born and stuff. Worried about his health at the time. Everything's fine now. But
good. Yeah, that was my first.
Stuff,
that was
man.
going to be my
Yeah,
first
good
question.
news.
And as strange as this may be to be the first question, and we'll get onto the book and the collaboration process, and maybe conspiracies. What is the moon?
Yeah.
Is it really made of cheese? We'll get into that in a bit. But I think hearing that, knowing your work and like the labour that goes into it, and obviously with the painting and everything, going through such an intense time, did that sort of affect the artwork that you were doing and the process itself? Because it's quite an intense book, The Department of Truth. Pretty intense.
Well, it was. I mean, up until Department of Truth, I was working digitally anyway, so that was kind of so. I always wanted to find the right book that would suit me, going back to the kind of thing that I wanted to do, which was traditional media and mixed media and stuff. But yeah, I think, well, certainly at the time when Jesse was born, that changed. I had to go back to working digitally for one issue.
Right.
But nevertheless, I mean, literally the whole time it's all been traditional apart from that. But it was just the right book to work on something and do that kind of stuff. I mean, me and James talked about it from the start that it kind of, we wanted it to be experimental essentially. Yeah, I mean, I just think it was the right book at the right time really for us to do that on. So it certainly changed my approach to working, but mainly because up until then, I don't know how many different titles I've done by then, not that many, 5 or 6 different titles, and they're all digital.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I was getting kind of, bored's probably the wrong word, but I was finding myself falling into a real kind of routine and almost like a factory process of how I worked.
Yeah.
Switching it up and moving onto traditional media, like, I mean, not only changed my style quite drastically, I suppose, but also just made me enjoy it more again, if I'm honest.
Okay.
You know, like that kind of like, we kind of threw the rule book out window as far as this goes, which is why there's kind of collage and all sorts of different things in there.
Was it
And it's
something
very
that
different. It's very different from punk, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed working on those books, and
Yeah, I love reading them, man. Yeah,
but it wasn't really where I wanted to go in the end. It's kind of I'm like, you know, the kind of stuff that I'm into, kind of like Sienkiewicz and McKean and Kent Williams and people like that.
Yeah.
So that's the way that I always wanted to go.
With these sort of styles that you're doing now, and like you can totally see it on the page, all the experimentation and the collage and stuff. Was it an art style you were doing way back before you got into this rhythm of and you were rediscovering something you used to do?
Yeah, I mean that's when I was at college, when I was at art college, and even before that when I was at school, that's the kind of art style that I always used to do. And there wasn't really so much emphasis on digital stuff back then anyway. So like, you know, it's what you did. I mean, and funnily enough, I mean, one thing that I think one of the books or one of the covers is a McKean cover for one of the Hellblazer issues that really sort of turned me on to that was the fact that I think one of them had like a doily or a kind of or piece of net curtain stuck to the cover like as part of the collage, and it suddenly flicked a switch in my brain thinking, oh, hang on, you can do all this kind of weird stuff, you can just stick stuff on, you can do all this kind of weird, crazy stuff with it. And that was when I was at school actually, and since then that stuck with me. But So like, you know, through school and through college, that's kind of the style that I did and always wanted to do. And like, but like when I started doing comics, I kind of figured it's going to take me too long to do that kind of traditional work, you know, because you want to. So I went on to digital stuff, but ironically, you know, like you're trying to recreate that digitally, and it never quite works so easily. I mean, the thing is when you do traditional stuff, there's that sort of serendipity element where you kind of like just happy accidents, things go wrong.
Yeah.
And you're trying to recreate that with digital stuff. You can do it, but it kind of like it's all a bit contrived. And so I think in all honesty, probably I think I sped up when I switched back to doing traditional media.
See, I think the thing is with this approach that you're doing now, it kind of it obviously clearly does so much suit the style of Department of Truth, but also you're having to add stuff in there. So there's a lot of the use of iconography of even the badge of Department of Truth, and you've got all this sort of stuff that you see on a dollar bill, for example. You know, that has to be added into a lot of images, which kind of suits it, I guess. Does it? Or
yeah, absolutely. I think it does. I mean, I didn't design the insignia for Department of Truth was done by Dylan Todd, the guy that does the design work for us. Right. But that's the good thing, like, you know, that stuff's readily available now. I can print that off, I can cut it up, I can collage it, and there'll be no advantage to me doing that digitally, I don't think now. Yeah. I think that works quite well. Like, you know, I can do that, and you know, all those things, like if you're sticking those things down and creating these collages with it, all those little things, like I say, and the kind of the happy accidents, that kind of all adds to that. So like, you know, there's bits of glue that kind of like, you know, create imperfections in it and things like that, and that all adds to it. But so I would never sort of try and add those things in that you're saying, Tony, about the kind of things like the, you know, iconography and stuff. I always try and do those with an analog approach, really.
Right.
Because I think, you know, I don't think it'd be much quicker for me to do it digitally, and that's the only reason I could see myself. Only reason why I want to do it digitally, and I don't actually think it would make much difference. But also sort of visually, really, I think it works to do those sort of things.
Yeah, I think you lose occasionally depending on the project, you can lose a bit of energy, and having that, you know, passion going into it often comes back out to the reader. I think with this sort of thing, you know, it really, I really feel it on this one, man. I was saying to you, there's. That image, I had it as my screensaver when you shared it on Twitter for a while, was the guy with the multiple cameras, like an old school Hollywood camera thing. And that's come out, no spoilers, but that's come out in the most recent issue, and I'm like, that's fucking incredible, man.
Oh, cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, so good. Yeah.
Well, funny enough, that's one of the title of that, which is it's the man with the movie camera. So all the logo on that, the title on that is all done by hand as well. But that's a good example of that. It works so much better. I could try and do that digitally, but you know, I'd probably spend longer doing it digitally trying to create that. So, and you know, as I say, you just it's kind of it's more spontaneous, and I think that works. But it's the same thing. Like if I'm pressed for time with doing an issue, you know, you kind of like you look back at it in time to come, because you're not necessarily cut corners, but you have to be less precious about stuff, I think, when you
that's a good point.
But when you look back at it, you actually think it's got so much more energy. There's a Punk's Not Dead issue where the same thing happened. I came back from Emerald City, and Shelley said to me, "Oh, you've got like 2 weeks to do the issue." I hadn't started on the final artwork, so I raced through it. But looking back at it now, I'd say it's probably the best issue. It's got the most energy to it,
Okay.
And I think that's often that stands to reason. That makes sense with comics. That's what you want to do. You want to keep the energy there, and it's a medium where, generally speaking, you don't have a lot of time to do stuff. So, I think it adds to it very much so.
Do you communicate much with the letterer, whose name is, I'm going to remember this, Aditya Bidikar? Because there's very much in there's a continuity between the art and the lettering on this, isn't there?
Yeah. There's are you familiar with there's a two-part Bigfoot?
Yes, love it. One of my favourite bits, actually.
Oh thank you. And so there's all like these journal pages in there.
Yeah.
And that's the first time we sort of truly collaborated, I think, because it was like a combination of like he did all it was all handwritten by Eddie. He wrote all the stuff, and he'd send it to me, then I'd fuck it up basically.
Dirty it up, yeah.
Whatever. And like just doodle over it and things. And that was the first sort of true collaboration, I think. Although saying that, there was probably a few titles here and there, I think, through the series where we've done that. But that was our first kind of like, major thing we did. But I love doing that. I mean, I come from a design background anyway, so kind of I can sort of I can appreciate what everyone can appreciate what he does. He's great, but it's quite good fun sort of playing around with type and things as well. It's it's an enjoyable.
Well, you've got to play around with sort of old government document type and all that sort of thing as well, haven't you? With the conspiracy theory side of it. Yeah. So. Did you have to do much research, dude? Do you have to go and look through because every page has got seemingly a different conspiracy theory to me, and there's just sort of offhand mentions of the Loch Ness monster on one page, and then you move on to something else. Did you have to go back and look through? I mean, because the old Bigfoot thing's very American, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, James. So a long time before we actually started working on it properly, like James has been working on this for a long time before I ever spoke to him about it. And he basically sent me through like the series Bible for it. And I mean, as he said to me, he's basically been researching this book his whole life because it's the sort of stuff he's always loved.
This feels like it almost feels like there's a doorway into James's brain.
This is the 14 times in the comic, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, well, two reasons. One, I didn't feel like I needed to do too much research on it because he's done a lot anyway.
He's done the legwork.
Need. Secondly, I don't really have time to spend, sitting around looking into this stuff. And thirdly, actually, a third one as well is that I think it benefits my artwork by not getting too influenced by stuff that's come before. So he would describe to me what that conspiracy is or whatever. And it's really nice to go in and just have my take on it and not worry about it too much. He'd pick me up on stuff that if there's anything that doesn't work, but thankfully that hasn't really happened much yet.
Yeah, so what's that collaboration process like though? Because for like you say, whether you're using this different sort of medium as well, I'd imagine there isn't the Control Z of undoing a lot of things. So you you need it to be in a good state before you even start on the final one. Is there a lot of collaboration between the whole team before you even start on a final page?
No, not really. Again, a lot of it comes down to time, but I mean, it's changed. It's changed over the time that we've been working on it. I think so. Like the first issue, I remember everything was broken down into panels and a standard script, and probably the same for the second. But I think by the time we got to the third, like James was writing all the dialogue in the script and sort of saying this is a double page. Do basically interpret it however you want. And it became quite an organic process like that, and that's kind of continued, to be honest with you. And again, that it's the way. I think it probably took us 3 issues to sort of start kind of realizing that would work well for us.
Yeah, the gelling, isn't it? It's the confidence of like after a while, you're confident in what he's going to give you, and at the same time, he knows he can just say, "Yeah, Martin's got this." I'll just
you don't treat panels like panels a lot of the time. There's, for example, you have a lot of W page spreads where people are walking through the page, aren't they, having a conversation and stuff. I love that, but you know well enough to the eye's going to go that way, then it's going to go that way. So It's almost like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think. I mean, there's no getting away from the fact this book's got a lot of dialogue in it, and it
has to have, though, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's basically people talking about these theories for a lot of the book, and so you try and find interesting ways of basically putting that on the page, and I think there's all these techniques you can use like that. You can have like people walking along the bottom of a double page spread, and in the background you've got like various panels, just like small snippets from the things they're talking about. And sometimes you don't even need to. You don't even need. I think there's a danger of like repeating what's being said in the dialogue, and you don't always need to do that. So like if the guy Hawk's walking on, he's talking to Cole, and he's describing something, you don't necessarily have to be depicting that through the illustrations because he's saying it. So you can sort of find other routes to take which are interesting.
Yeah, Hawk's my favourite character. Do you get that a lot? Because I really like him. Yeah.
Likewise. I think the most fun one to draw or paint would be Star-Faced Man, but I think as a character, I think Hawk's great.
And I've got to ask you, and you may not know this, but it might be something you can ask the writer. But James, is that issue 9 reminded? Now, I don't know if you've ever seen it. There's a TV series called Smiley's People. It's the same character as Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Have you ever seen that series?
I'm familiar with the series. Yeah.
There's a moment in that where he goes to see this ex-female agent. George Smiley goes to see it, and she basically lays out everything for him. She says, "No, this is what happened," and that is what happens in issue 9, where Cole goes off with Hawk, doesn't he? And he says to him, "This is what it really is about." Yeah. And you get this, and like you say, that's a very talky issue, isn't it? Because he's basically having to tell him stuff, and you're having to shadowily sort of illustrate it in the background to a certain extent. But
I think I might have got this mixed up, but I think that's the one. As I said to you earlier, a lot of this becomes quite a blur when I look back on it.
I get it. Yeah.
But that's the one where there's a double page spread, and they're walking along the bottom of the page. I think is that the one, and then there's like and then there's all the different breakdowns of all the different sort of images behind. I think that's that one. I think.
Yeah. And they sort of transverse. They go on they start at the top, right to the left. Go over to the right, and then cross again to the left towards it. And there's this sort of creature behind them in them as well. Yeah, that's a great page.
Yeah. I know what I mean. Yeah, I mean that's kind of like I find that, to be honest with you, as much of a challenge and as enjoyable as doing like an intense. Not that there's many of these in Department of Truth, but an intense action scene. It's just as much fun, just as much of a challenge to make a scene which is just two people talking in a room interesting and enjoyable, because it's got to be enjoyable to do. For me, as much as anything else. But
well, it sounds like you can really concentrate on it. You're sort of pouring heart and soul onto the page.
Yeah, I love character acting in comics in general, and it's the perfect book to really sort of delve into that element of it with the illustrations and the panels and sort of and really sort of like hone in on that character acting kind of stuff. That's just for me, that's kind of the stuff that I fun, to be honest with you.
And I think it shows in the artwork. I mean, sometimes like when we read comics, and it's a lazy shorthand I use all the time, it's like, it's like I'm reading a movie, or I'm watching it, or I'm reading a TV show sort of thing. And the pacing of the book and the way that you do that sort of dialogue, it has that same feeling, but the way you do the artistic touches to it, it's like a TV show. I can't imagine.
Man, they're going to have to go some to do that, aren't they?
Yeah.
Fucking hell. Oh, it's announced.
I don't know how that's going to translate.
It's announced, the TV series. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm right, Sandy.
Yeah.
The TV series is announced. Yeah.
I mean, so are you having any input into, how nutty it'll look? In the nicest possible way. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I hope they would. I mean, I can't say too much, but we're a long way off probably at the moment.
Right. Okay.
So no one's sort of come to your house, pulled out one of your pages and gone, dude, what the fuck? How are we supposed to do this?
They're frightened of contacting you, I would say.
Yeah, people do that all the time. They're not necessarily from the film industry, just generally.
Well, I did wonder, do you get any weird emails? Because there's a lot of people who there's a lot of nutters out there, aren't there? People think, they really know about the space landing.
Yes.
Really boring, but no, I honestly don't. I mean, I expect
that's a shame, isn't it? I'll write you one later.
Yeah, but no, surprisingly, I don't. In a way, it's quite disappointing, to be honest. It'd be quite interesting to see that kind of weird stuff.
Don't open that door, Martin. Don't open that door.
Because it's kind of designed to make everyone who reads it paranoid, isn't it? There is an element to that. Yeah.
I mean, I think, and the book kind of is very timely, wasn't it? Really, let's be honest. And I think, that's. I mean, it's a very well written book. I mean, James is amazing, but at the same time, it's just very timely. And
if there ever was a time when there's a lot of nutters out there talking shit, it's now, isn't it? You know,
God, yeah.
You've only got to look at the COVID conspiracies and all this sort of thing that are going on.
Yeah.
It's constant fuel and inspiration for James, basically.
I guess,
totally.
yeah.
And a lot of these shows, or like comics and these sort of ideas, they come at about at a certain time when I think people need some sort of entertainment, you know, just to pour their brains into. I mean, like the X-Files. Do you remember how massive that was?
Yeah.
You know, what was I struggle to think what was the world like at that time. You know, for people to
pre-internet, when it made it slightly easier
to lock on to that.
Yeah.
And especially now with the internet world, it's a fascinating book in so many ways. But how did it all come to pass? How did you go from mild-mannered Martin Simmonds to someone turning you into Banana Man? No.
Had you met James before, or is it?
Well, I'd never met James. James approached me about doing the book. What was I doing? I think I was still on Punks Not Dead. I was on the second volume of Punks Not Dead.
Right.
And James just messaged me seemingly out of the blue, but he was looking for an artist for this book. As I said to you, I think James has been writing this book pretty much his whole life, and he had spent some time on writing. I think he'd written the first issue by the time he approached me, actually. But there's no publisher in mind at the time or anything like that. And funny enough, are you familiar with Matthew Rosenberg?
Yes. Yeah.
He recommended. I'm a friend of his, and he recommended me to James. So I owed him a pint or two.
He was at Thought Bubble a few years ago, wasn't he? Rosenberg?
Yeah, he's great. And so James got in touch with me, and at the time, James at the time was writing Justice League Dark, and he was in a exclusivity deal with DC. I think I'm right in that. And so we were still looking ahead to when we would get the chance to do this. I was finishing off Monster Dead. We were going to go straight into it after that, and then. Funnily enough, I'd finished Monster Dead, and Chris Ryler got in touch with me about doing a book with Joe Hill. So, which was the sort of the crime, the murder film, the sort of noir book we did basically. And I didn't really want to pass that up. And James was really busy because I didn't know this at the time, but he was about to take over on Batman as the lead writer.
Okay, yeah.
So it tied in. So it all got pushed back because of that, until James had more time and I had more time. And so it sort of simmered away for quite a while before we actually sort of cracked on. And it was actually January 2020 when I got the script through and I started doing the character designs and stuff. So by the time the pandemic and the lockdown hit, should I say, here, which was mid-March, wasn't it? I think I just started on the first few pages. I can remember when it was being announced, and I remember doing one of the double page spreads. There's in the first issue, there's a double page spread of Cole turning up at the Flat Earth Society convention, and there's all these guys hanging around with all look identical with polo shirts on and stuff, and Hawaiian, little shorts and sandals and things. And I was painting that page at the time, and I remember Bojo the Clown coming on TV and sort of announcing that we're going to go into lockdown, and we sort of hot-footed it down to Devon to stay with my parents because they had much more room and stuff. Right. But so it's a really weird time. So I started it. I was basically started just before that, really. So as I say, I started doing the character designs in January and was already working on the first script by the time lockdown happened. So that was really weird. So we had a decent run up till it came out in September. But it was
also being stuck in lockdown. That must have spun your melon out a bit, didn't it?
Obviously nobody, and certainly there was so many unknowns, wasn't there? And if you're looking more specifically at comics. I mean, there's so many unknowns. That with Diamond kind of, shutting up shop for. Yeah,
we had months where we didn't get anything new, didn't we?
Yeah, we were thinking, fuck, what's going to. Because I think the original idea was we were going to release the first issue, I think, in November, because that's when the elections, US elections were due.
Right.
But Image wanted to bring it forward to September, so we already had that set in place. But we thought we had it set, but we still didn't know, because obviously there was, as I say, there's so many unknowns with stuff. So it was kind of a weird. It's a weird time for everyone, but if we're talking specifically about this project, it was a weird time.
But also not. I mean, you're on an ongoing at that point. You've jumped onto an ongoing during the start. There is that good side to it as well, isn't there? As a freelancer.
It kind of timing wise, it worked well for us because there's a lot of people, sadly, that being told pencils down and stuff over.
Yeah.
But we weren't, because it's an image book, so it was our book. So we were in that long lead in to when the first issue came out. So we were just stockpiling pages and issues. So in fact, it kind of worked out okay for us. To be honest, we were fortunate in that respect.
Yeah, cool. Can I throw a Sarah question in? Sarah sent me a couple of questions. Sarah Harris, who obviously massive fan of you and the book, and she says, I'll read it out to you. How long do you see it continuing? And then she says the only answer she will accept is forever.
Well, I know a few people I've seen a few people mention that James has said it's going to be about 30 issues.
Okay.
But it won't. Even then, it wouldn't be the end of Department of Truth.
Well, I think you need a Ministry of Lies miniseries, man.
Well,
imagine that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
I can't say much, but we've got other plans. We've got plans with lots of things. So I don't, it certainly won't be the end. I'd happily be painting sort of stuff in the Dot universe for the rest of my career, to be honest.
Cool.
Yeah. So
and the next question
with that story, sorry Tony, just a side aspect to this, but obviously James had this for his whole life, and this idea was developing and brought you on, and then how is that the collaboration is more of your ideas because it's your book, isn't it? Now it's both, it's everyone's sort of book.
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's the same with pretty much any comic book, isn't it? Really, it kind of like whatever the script is, you're always expected to kind of, you have to sort of, I hate to use this word because it seems like I'm not downplaying the script, but you kind of elevate it again. That's your aim as an artist.
Yeah, it's a joint creation, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So you have to put your own sort of your own personality into it. That's your job as an artist.
As a writer as well, I think to any writers out there, it pays to be, no matter what your name is, no matter where you are in the industry, put the ego to the side. So it's like, because you may think, my idea, it has to be like this, it can't be any other kind of way. And you get an artist on, and like you say, Martin, you elevate it, and it becomes something more.
Absolutely. And that's one. I mean, James, as I said before, I keep saying this, and James is an amazing writer, and he's the most lovely, humble guy. There really is no ego. He's great, but he'll write scripts, and I think he probably would expect it to go off on tangents from what he's written, because that's what that's what you want from an artist. You want them to take it somewhere you don't expect. And it's certainly if it's a truly collaborative thing anyway. I mean, a good example is something like Starface Man. I think originally in the script he was described as like a sort of almost like cliched kind of vampire, sort of Dracula type character with a black cloak, the red, this red bit on it and stuff. But that just evolved between us just by like me sketching stuff and maybe trying something different with it. And going over to James, and James, sort of maybe chipping back in with something else, and and that evolved into something completely different. And that's the beauty of collaboration, though, isn't it? That's how it works.
Yeah, it should elevate. So both should become more than the.
Yeah.
That's the whole way, isn't it?
And I think that's why, and it goes back to what I was saying about the scripts as well. Like, if you trust if you have trust in your artist, then that script you could probably leave a lot of that descriptive stuff out and leave it to the artist, because an artist should know how to pace stuff, should know how to kind of do all these different things and break things up. I mean, there's so many things where you might list, and this goes back again to working with Shelley actually on Punks.Dead. Like, she would say, here's the script from David, and it'd be a great script, but like say the first page would be like 6 panels, and then be like, but there's one panel in there that kind of like deserves more. So you would end up creating a splash page on the first page out of that, and then moving everything else onto the next page, and create, and then maybe even add another page in so it all balances out again further on. But then you create another double page spread, so that it's really, and that's where the elevating thing comes from. I think really is from Shelley.
Yeah, I think in a good proper collaboration, that's how it should work, man.
Yeah.
But
that's what makes it exciting for everyone as well. you know, I like that kind of thing. And
it's evolving and growing as you draw. That's the idea.
Organic process, isn't it? You know, and even the same with, you know, when I do all the thumbnails and stuff, I might put in where I think the lettering should be placed within those panels and so forth. And obviously, I need to do that because if I've chopped around all the panels and, you know, maybe sort of combined some of the panels and those things, it's going to not make sense to Addy when it goes to him. If he's got script, you know, which is different. So I'll place them in. But, you know, obviously, Addy's has much better idea about where to place it later.
I imagine he must be sweating because I imagine getting
you know,
your average comic page through and you're thinking, oh yeah, here you go, just letter it. But you've painted a fucking masterpiece and you're sending it to him and ask him to put words on. I'd shit my pants.
But I think I think he relishes the idea of, like, you know, like, it's a challenge for him as well because it's like, as I say, it's dialogue heavy, and a lot of it's like
very stylized as well. The lettering, isn't it?
But even sort of the lettering approach he's made to it is done to, you know, the type and the way he does all the ballooning and stuff. Like, it's incredible, and it's so sympathetic to the way the art is, and it just, you know, it sits so nicely on those pages. I think he's an incredible, and he's kind of like.
Oh mate, the lettering is part of the art in this. Definitely, it's not always, but it definitely is here.
Absolutely. I mean, he deservedly was nominated last year for an Eisner as well. And
what do the Eisners know, Martin? They know fuck all.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
I got another question from Sarah. She said, "Black Flag, Minor Threat, or Dead Kennedys?"
Minor Threat.
Oh, okay. All right, okay. Good.
Yeah. But
she'll be happy with that.
That's only because Ian McKay moved on to Fugazi afterwards.
Right. Okay. Cool. Good. And the other thing I wanted to ask. Sorry, go on.
No, I'd say it's a tough one because possibly Dead Kennedys, I suppose.
Okay, yeah, I think she guessed.
Good question.
That one.
Good question.
Yeah. And the other, following on from that, obviously we're talking about the art, but the obviously the benefit you now have of painting these, you know, massive canvases the size of your garden is you're now the king of original art, aren't you? Is that right?
Yeah, it's an added bonus, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. I mean, as I say, the main reason I moved back onto doing traditional art is just purely because it became far more enjoyable again. But yeah, a byproduct of that is that you can sell artwork. And it's
are you using an agent now? Do you use an agent to sell it through?
Yeah. So I'm with Cadence at the moment.
Oh, they're pretty good. Yeah.
So, what's that experience like? You know, like getting an agency and stuff like that.
It's great. I mean, they're very laid back about it all, and they have a massive roster of artists now, which is a good thing, you know. And they're very good. They do know what they're doing with stuff, which is great.
They're one of the big names, aren't they, in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it takes away a lot of the kind of admin stuff that I have to be doing myself, to have somebody there representing me doing it. But yeah, I mean, it's a lovely thing, but not only financially, but also it's just nice to know that people are buying those pieces of artwork and hopefully going to cherish them and do something with them. You know, it's nice to see people send you images of them framed and so forth.
Yeah, amazing.
Here's a cool techie question then. What sizes are the canvases? Are they all the same size, or do you mix it up from page to page?
Yeah, it's all the same size. So I only use I just use Bristol board. So it's really simple, kind of like I use a smooth Bristol board, like just a Canson one. It's like really simple. It's fairly cheap, not particularly expensive, but
11 by 17, sort of like comic size.
It's an A3 page. It's an A3 sheet, and I've basically blown up the comic size to I don't know what measurements. It's about 150% basically. Yeah. And so then I just set up a template, basically a border on the page, and based on that. So it's nothing like. I don't use canvases or anything like that. They're all the same size. It's all fairly uniform. Apart from a double page. Obviously, if you have a double page, I'll just be sticking two pieces of A3 together.
Yeah.
So it's really nothing crazy.
There's like very minimal kind of mucking around with it digitally afterwards.
No, not well. It depends because some of the pages are paint and they'll be in colour. Even then they'll be tweaked digitally, but most of the pages are done like. So I use like. Are you familiar with an ink called Quink, which is like it's normally used in fountain pens actually, I think.
Okay. I've heard of it. Never used it.
It's a really nice thing. I do a lot of ink washes with it, and it creates a really nice when say with watercolors they gather around the edges of but it creates this nice sort of bluey kind of browny kind of like sort of hue around the edges and stuff. It's like it's not solid black at all, and it just creates a really nice texture, especially on Bristol board, which is something quite smooth. It still creates this like sort of mottled effect and stuff. So that's really nice. But I use that on black pencil most of the time, and then a toothbrush for splats and things, and then a little bit of white acrylic. But normally when I'm doing stuff like Starface Man, so with Starface Man, that's a weird one actually. That's an exception to the rule because that's nearly always collage. Because what I created a model of his head, and so I photograph his head and I print it with the right lighting on it, and then I collage it and I cut that up and put it on, and then paint on top. Just so it creates it's just so it's a completely different sort of look to the rest of the.
Yes, yeah.
So it needs that sort of jarring kind of like otherworldly sort of element to it, I suppose.
Gives it that element of like, this isn't right, this shouldn't be here.
Absolutely, it's like the off-kilter weirdness to it, and so that worked nicely. But again, that came out of what I was saying earlier about me and James talking about the character and how he developed over time for me and him doing some back and forth. And also it came from the fact just me wanting to do something different, and I could do that because it was all traditional media, so I could try doing something strange like that. And it just made it more enjoyable, and I still think that's just key to the whole process. Enjoying what you do and keeping it fresh and exciting. And so there's a bit of collage. But whenever he's I generally do a lot more acrylic painting with his character. And the other thing I do actually is with the fictional woman appears, even if the page is black and white, she'll be painted in red. Her dress will be red. And I just think it gives it a different feel.
That striking image of her. Yeah. She's such a great design.
Such an amazing design, that is.
That's kind of like a sort of demonic Audrey Hepburn, basically.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, I get you. Yeah. Probably would still. Do you know what I mean? But
because it's also has given birth to some wonderful sort of variant covers. Of just her. It's been amazing.
Yeah. It's lovely to see. I love to see people's like takes on her and the Starface Man. Actually, that is really interesting to see. Are they the two characters you enjoy the most drawing, do you think? Because I was going to ask you what you've most enjoyed drawing or seeing come out again in a comic. I think so. Certainly Starface Man, because as I say, that's kind of like when you get to a part where he's in it, you think, that's good, I'm going to sort of crack open the Pritt stick again and do some glue. but it's just good fun to do. And there's no rules with him, I think. So if I wanted to depict him differently, I could. Funny enough, a mate of mine did a cover for issue 20, and he did a Starface Man painting. It was I was saying about other people having different interpretations of him. His was like completely sort of different to any other one I'd seen, and that was really inspiring to see somebody else do something so different. But that's what I like about it. I can still paint if I wanted to. I could sort of take that approach with that character because I don't want to give too much away.
Can you say who that is, dude? Or
his mate of mine. His name's Daniel Carter. So he's a amazing artist. Does a lot. He's a DJ for Radio 1, but he does a lot of portraiture.
Okay.
He does a podcast as well, and he interviews different people, and he always does like portraits of each person that he's interviewing. They're amazing, and I've always known him for years, and I've always loved his art. Really, really cool stuff. So he did and he's a big fan of the book as well, so it tied in nicely. So I got him to do a cover for issue 20. It's amazing. It's just such a different approach to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
There's like elements of that character. There's some I can't remember which issue it is, but one of the issues, like he's funny. This is something that James described. Said that basically make it more abstract and weird. And I ended up doing it's kind of like a sort of like cubism approach to drawing the Starface Man and stuff, because it was like supposed to be like he hadn't quite developed in Cole's mind at this stage into the character that we normally see. And so you can do these sort of things with that character, and it's a lot of fun to do, especially if you're working traditionally, because you can do all sorts of weird things, with collage and stuff. So
one of my favourite pages of yours, man, if I can just interrupt there, is I fucking laughed when you did this. Is that when in the start of the not the Yeti, whatever you call it, it's not a Yeti. The what? Sorry.
Bigfoot one.
The Bigfoot storyline. You open the comic and there's this like full on just picture of his face. It just made me laugh.
With the fly in his like a fly.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, genius. Yeah.
Oh, cheers. Yeah. Well, I can't remember how it was written in the script, but I think James probably wrote it in, like just draw a close up of like it's supposed to be like a cheap tacky statue of him basically in a cafe, isn't it?
Yeah.
So James probably wrote it in, just draw like a close up of him, I think.
Because I think the thing is, people don't understand about this. They think, this is like super serious, thing, and it is. Elements of it is so serious and so intense, but it has a sense of humour here and there, doesn't it? As well, you inject that into it.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think. I mean, I don't want to say there's a character in it. I don't want to name him in case people haven't read it yet. But yeah, there's a couple of people that they got really, even Hawk actually. Hawk's a funny character.
He is, yeah.
Yes.
With his hat always makes me laugh. He wears his hat just to wind people up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something James wrote into the script. Actually, it was his inverted US flag. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I love painting that. He's a character I love painting as well. Actually, he's just I don't know. There's something.
We were talking about this earlier. But we'll talk about it later. We recorded in different order, but we're talking about people who we're attracted to characters who are kind of in their later lives and have been there and done it.
Yeah,
and he's one of them, isn't he? There's just a breadth of knowledge, and he's sort of bitter but funny. But
yeah, he's sort of like a Keith Richards, isn't he? Of conspiracy theories, sort of Department of Truth stuff.
He's the Larry David of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, he's properly weathered, isn't he? And a shriveled old walnut, basically. That cynical, but
the dialogue absolutely sings in this book, like from page one, just like the pacing of it, and some of the great, it's the little moments in dialogue. I mean, you must find this, Martin, like when you read from the scripts, that you chuckle at like the real sparkling little moments. I think one of the ones in there at the beginning where she takes Cole for pancakes, and he says they're good, and she goes, "I wouldn't take you for shitty pancakes. I respect my time." And I thought, what a brilliant line.
Yeah, it's great.
But in terms of like character design and stuff, how did you fall onto Cole himself? How did that come about? Is there any Robert Redford in there?
There's a naivety as well. 2 Days of the Condor, maybe something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right, nice. Yeah,
that's that James mentioned first of all, actually. And I think that's one person. Another person is 80s Bowie. Is another person.
Oh, okay.
What a combo.
Yeah. I mean, certainly in the first issue, because he's wearing this tan suit, and there's that was kind of. I'll make me think of is it the I think it's the video for Let's Dance. I think he's wearing this tan suit.
Yeah.
It's just I always thought he was cool looking at that stage. Although maybe I think we probably scaled down the shoulder pads a little bit compared to what.
Yeah. Because I suppose the elephant in the room here, man, is we can't talk about a lot of what goes on in this. Because as we talked about I remember you sent me the first issue of this round to review, and there's a sting in the tail around the first issue, so we can't talk about a lot of this, can we? That's the thing. No. How do you find that when you go on American panels, and I know you've been to US conventions and stuff? Do you have to be careful what you say a lot on this, don't you?
Well, conveniently, we went to the last one we went to was Orlando. We were supposed to be doing a panel there. It wasn't just the Department of Truth. It was me and Navarro and Berta, so the three work with James, and James was there obviously, and I was supposed to go, but it wasn't COVID, but I got a head cold before I left with the kids, and then flew over. I tested negative, of course, and stuff, but I completely lost my voice, so I didn't go on the panel at all. No,
right.
They were all convinced I was lying. I just didn't want to do the panel, but
he's putting it on the record. He's putting it on the record now.
I completely lost my voice. It's never happened before. But yeah, I mean, so it doesn't. So far, I haven't sort of got away with it, to be honest with you.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, James is very good at kind of like scooting around skirting around those kind of.
Because it's such a big part of the story, isn't it? And so we live in this in the times of people binge reading now, don't we?
And certainly the back of like the first trade sort of. It walks a fine line of telling you what the book kind of is without telling you what the book. And I think the basic setup, is a lot about government and conspiracy theories and all. We could say all of that, but the beauty is in the little twists and reveals.
But that one person provides such an element of uncertainty about the future of this. All the characters around him, doesn't it?
Yeah. He's kind of like.
We can't.
Yeah, it's difficult. but yeah, kind of like it's sort of, in a way, it kind of hinges on that.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, and perhaps this is more for James, but I think perhaps it's interesting as well, is I'm because we're big nerds, Martin. I keep a little notebook of things I think around comics, and talk around the podcast and stuff. And I remember when I read about issue 5 of this, I made a note in my notebook that just said, "This is the crossing over between conspiracy theory and magic." And later on, there's sort of illusions made, or intimations made towards it being magic. Because there's all these little things about I stop fictions before they become reality and this sort of thing. Is that something that you're aware of as a sort of a line running through it? Okay. Right, that's all we can say. Yeah.
If you say any more, Tony, you will be killed.
Right, okay. Well, it's just a fan theory at the moment of mine. But
it's alluded to, isn't it?
Yeah.
In parts.
I love that a book exists that there can be fan theories about stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great.
It shows investment in a series.
Yeah.
We need more.
It really does.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really say.
No, fine. That's fine, man. I
will say fair play to a lot of people for keeping the genie in the bottle, because by the time I got around to reading the first 2 trades, I didn't know what it. That was also down to me staying away from everything. Because
Same,
I wanted to be surprised by it.
Yeah, that was the weird thing. Yeah, I mean, I remember the first issue coming out, and then there had been a few kind of like advanced reviews.
I think we were one, weren't we? I think we got it early from you.
I think you did. And I remember hearing you talk about it, and you did very well at avoiding it.
Thank you. Makes a change, but yeah.
But, you sort of read all these reviews, and you're sort of thinking, we kind of like, especially with the advanced stuff, we were like, there's certain elements you can't talk about, and I think everybody that I know of avoided talking about that, which is great.
Yeah.
But you spend the whole time kind of like expecting somebody to say something, and it just kind of like
yeah.
The covers are also beautiful, but give nothing away. In a wonderful, it's sort of reminiscent to me of Vertigo titles, like when you would see a classic Vertigo book.
Some of the Sandman were like that one.
Yeah, and you look at it and you go, "That's gorgeous. I have no idea what this is about, but I need to read it."
But that's why people are attracted to books. Like people will be attracted to this book after hearing us skirt around this big mystery. If it was me and I hadn't read this, I'd be going out and buying it now, because I think I really need to know what this is about.
It's sort of it's frustratingly vague, isn't it? But what can you do?
Yeah.
But with covers, like, I think you can create covers that are striking and interesting and intriguing. You don't really need to be that sort of descriptive about what's going on in the book. As long as you're I'm hoping we did this with the first arc. Specifically, it's been quite different in approach to the others, but I'm hoping that we kind of achieved that of like making them look intriguing and interesting. But
that's why the Bigfoot, that's why the Bigfoot thing was so good, I think, because it's something that will catch. Everyone can talk about that, can't they?
Yeah.
That's the easier part to talk about. Some of the ups and downs in Cole's life and all this sort of thing, you can't talk about them, but you can talk about, fucking hell, there's a Bigfoot in it.
Well, yeah, and actually, I mean, that the Bigfoot stuff, I can't remember the exact order of things at the time, but I remember loads of people talking about, are you going to do a Bigfoot book? Are you going to do a Bigfoot or whatever? And James have already had it in his mind that he was going to do something, and it ended up being the 2-part one. But yeah, that one really, I think it's kind of like that was really an accessible kind of issue to put in now, I think, really, in a lot of respects, and also in a way a good jumping on point if people haven't read the other stuff.
Yeah, I think so, and a good little it makes a fun,
a nice kind of aside, wasn't it? From the
exactly,
bigger picture stuff in a way, but it all still ties in, of course. But yeah, I mean, and also that was a really, really, really enjoyable issue, or 2 issues to do. And for us at the time, it was also, as I say, quite different to the other issues.
Yeah, with the other sort of diary notes and stuff in it as well. Yeah.
So it's good. Great. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention, man, which was also, I don't have all of your art constantly as my screensaver, but what was my screensaver was your Batman cover, which is fucking amazing.
Which one? Because there's a few.
Here we go. Which one? There's a few.
I've got to go back
He's
and find it and
become that
describe
guy.
it. I'm not sure that I don't have the number of the issue because it was just the image. I think I nicked it off your Twitter. I think.
Was it the one? Is it the one with the two hands covering his face?
Yes, that's the one.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, that again, they were great fun to do, and that's all down to Ram really. Ram asked me if I'd like to do them.
Oh, nice.
For his run, which is great. But that again, really good. I mean, a really good fun to do.
You got anything else like that coming up, or?
So there's 3 issues. There's 3 issues of that I've done the covers for. I'm not sure what they are. I'm not sure whether they're. I don't know if they're like 1 in 25s or something. There's some sort of incentive cover, I think.
Oh, okay, right.
I think they are. I could be wrong there. There's 3 of those, and they kind of all follow a theme. There's it's like a triptych, basically, of these covers for
okay.
Comics. So, and they all kind of follow a similar sort of theme. I think that's the only one that's been. That may be the only one that's been released. I think, as far as I'm aware.
I haven't seen the other ones. Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, I'm excited to read his stuff, man. I buy all the Batman books. Yeah, it's going to be great.
Again, lovely to see him nominated for the Eisner this year. He's a great writer.
They mean nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking.
It's not. But you know, with the nominations, I find like even just to be nominated, I think it shows that the people that put in the graft and do the work, and are also really positive about comics. That was one of the things that I always crow about Ram on this. Is like he's just constantly very pro comic. Just sort of check out this. Look at the amazing work that this person's done. This, you know. Yeah.
I mean, his quality level is just incredible. He's an amazing writer. I think he's like, well, James is the same. You know, like James' output is the same. I think both of them. I don't know how they do it. I don't know. God knows how many books they do each month or whatever. But there's always something. Like you talk to Ram, and it's just like, I've got this other idea, and this other idea, and this other idea.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what we want. They're the writers we want, aren't they?
It's really inspiring.
Yeah. If you get a script about a writer that's made some sort of deal with the devil and there's a conspiracy about it, perhaps you need to have a talk with James about it because his real life may be bleeding into the comic.
Now that you're larging it at American conventions, Martin, you know, swigging whiskey and you know all this sort of thing. Are you meeting any of your heroes whilst you've been here? Have you met
Not yet. I mean, I'm going to New York for the first time this year. I've never been.
Oh, I'm there. Yeah,
brilliant,
man.
Oh, brilliant! Oh, we'll be up then, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm going. So I'm going to go and annoy Sinkovich, I think. Go and see him because I've never met him before. But yeah, I don't know. If I can manage to move around, I hear it's like really hectic in it. It's like really intense.
Yeah, I didn't go the last one because it was sort of COVID-y, but it's previous. Mind you, if you'll be in early and be able to stay late, you might get around to see people at that point. You know, just large it in the green room, Martin. Are you in Artist Alley or are you on the
we are. So we do a lot of stuff with Scott's Collectibles. James they're the agent for James and actually now, and I do stuff with them as well. So like we're kind of like all in one section there together, like signings and so forth.
Oh, cool.
The idea was that so the guys that run, or Dan who owns Scott's Collectibles, like wanted to do this thing where it was like James, and me, Alvaro, and Berto, who work on the three sort of create your own books that he was doing at the time. I know he does more now, but that's something chilled and Nice House on the Lake and Department of Truth. So they sort of take us around to these different conventions around the States and a few other places, because it's just like a nice opportunity to have us all together. So like stuff signed by James and whatever. We did the same at Thought Bubble actually this year.
Okay.
So and we're going to hopefully do the same this year by the looks of it. It's just nice to have us all together in one space where we can all sort of start sign stuff and chat to people and things. So that's what we're doing this year in New York and a few other places.
Well, now that you're much in demand, are you finding it's cutting into your work time a bit? Are you, man? Or...
Yeah,
right.
That's the downside of it, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm either working on comics, sort of doing family stuff, or working on comics and doing family stuff. And then you sort of have all these intentions when you go away of doing all this work, but working traditionally it means I can't really do that. I mean, I do some stuff digitally still, like I like rough it out and things like that digitally, just because it's easier to work on an iPad and do that.
Yeah.
So I do that. So if it times nicely with going away to the con, I can do those things while I'm there. But you know, best plans and everything doesn't always work out like that.
So what cons are people going to be able to see you at in the foreseeable?
If in the UK, the only one I'm doing in the UK is Thought Bubble this year.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, I think we're supposed to be doing it, but we haven't been announced yet.
Are you booked out for any across the world? Any others?
Yeah, so we got a couple of weeks, about a month's time, we got Toronto. We've got a couple of Fan Expo in Toronto.
Oh, nice.
Then I think after that we're doing one in Las Vegas called the Amazing Las Vegas Comic Con.
Fucking hell.
Nice.
You're not taking your missus to that one then, I'm guessing.
No. What else have we got? New York after that.
Cool.
Then I think after New York, it's Thought Bubble, then San Francisco, and then Singapore at the end of the year. Yeah, so we've got
nice. It'd be interesting to see what Singapore's like, man. I've heard good things.
Yeah,
about
I've heard really. I mean, the guys at Scott's Collectibles, I think they've been before Tibet, and it didn't happen last year. We were supposed to go last year, and it didn't happen because of COVID and stuff. And
Edison does that one.
Yeah.
Does it?
Edison Neo, yeah, he'd be there.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
It looks great. I mean, I've only heard good things about it, so it'd be good fun to do. Yeah. So yeah, we see what happens. So that's it. There's quite a lot to do really.
In amongst all of that making comics malarkey.
Yeah.
I know.
I
And
know.
that is the downside, as I say, of working traditionally, is that a lot of the stages of the process I can't do because I'm not about to take my glue and my glue gun and my airbrush with me and things.
But I always think that I only want to read comics by people if I opened their studio door, they'd look like a crazy person lived there. And I think that's the ideal, isn't it? You can imagine that people like George Pratt and Sienkiewicz and all these sort of people have got like a studio that looks like somebody's just gone mental in there with a paint gun.
I hope they do. I'll be gutted.
Yeah.
I mean, Martin's
Me too.
studio, there's so many different cuttings. You probably think he's making ransom letters for
He's
something.
got a disembodied head.
Exactly. Yeah, all sorts of bits. Yeah, there's all. Well, actually, it's tidied up in at the moment, but up to normally there's bits of acetate that I've printed out on, and all sort of weird bits of paper and stuff.
Yeah, but we want everyone to know that he's a very normal person. You don't need to worry. But you are an absolute legend.
It's basically like it's basically like a kind of Blue Peter episode, basically. Yeah.
Oh God!
Just with
this
dead
is what
hookers.
Blue Peter does to people.
Yeah.
Making Tracy Island over the corner.
Yeah. So
Mate, can I just say quickly? I got to tell you, man. Watching you succeed in comics has been one of the best things about this podcast. Because I remember when we started, you were sort of, I don't want to call it small press and do it down, but you were on the rise. And to see you there now, man, fucking brilliant. So deserved.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's yeah.
I think the first time I met you, was it at that shitty convention in a Maidstone shopping centre or something like that? I got a feeling. Was it there?
That'd have been Demon Con, wasn't it?
That's it.
Yeah.
Did you do that one?
I've done that. I did that a few times. To be honest with you, I just used to like going hanging out with Mike Darley and Mike Stock and stuff.
Yeah, that's who I met you with. Yeah.
That was the gang, the OG gang. They know where the bodies are buried, so you need to be careful.
Yeah.
No, but that's
nice.
Doing that, it's just good fun. Some of the small press stuff, that's one of the small press. The smaller cons were just good fun to do.
Yeah, I agree, man. Yeah.
And they're, I mean, all the ones I'm talking about, going to all these ones in the States, they're great, but they're pop culture events. They're not Comic Con.
Yeah.
And despite like being in the shopping centre, DimCon it was just about comics, and it was just nice.
Yeah.
You'd be able to meet Wesley Crusher or something, kick him in the balls or something like that. Just
no, never assault people, Tony.
Well, Wesley Crusher's acceptable.
Okay,
you do know he's not actually called Wesley.
That's his real name. I think he thinks that's his real name.
We'll afterwards. But certainly, if you see Martin at a show, pop up and say hi because he's genuinely this lovely in real life.
He's a legend,
Thanks for coming on, man.
Where can people find you and find out more about the work and everything you got going on?
Oh well, I mean, you can always look on Twitter, which is just Martin_Simmonds on Instagram. It's Martin Simmonds, all one word. No website or anything at the moment, so it's nice and simple.
But if you go to Cadence Comic Book Art, have you still got pages on there?
If you go to Cadence, actually, if you go to Cadence, you can search me on there. I'll be on there. Yeah, and it's just the pages that are available.
And I tell you what, when it comes to the end of year, for the foreseeable future, just look at people's best of lists.
Yeah,
you'll probably see a few of his covers on there. So that's all I've got to say.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. We've been very nice about him. He does know where to PayPal us, doesn't he?
Yeah. With his OA millions.
I must just say, I generally try and listen to your podcast every week.
Oh, thank you, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thank you.
It's always highly entertaining.
That was a very diplomatic.
Clip that one.
way
That's
of
got
putting
a
it.
pull quote. That's a pull quote.
Yeah.
It's good. I enjoy listening to it. It's great.
Thank you,
cheers,
mate.
dude.
Cheers,
Thanks,
sir.
man.
And we enjoy your comics. The love is all around.
Indeed.
There you have it, folks. We spoil you, don't we? Eh?
We
Don't
do.
we do. We are very generous, aren't we, Dan?
Yes.
And as lovers.
Well,
Generous podcasters.
one
lovers.
has one moment.
But I will say, if I've bought some chips, they're my chips. No one else can have them. Anyway, right.
Okay.
No, of course, you know.
I don't like people putting their hands
share
in
a bit,
packets
share.
of crisps. I don't like that. Don't put your hand in my packet of crisps.
No, fair enough.
What? So if you offer someone a crisp?
Pour it out.
Well, it's all right if they're near the top, but if they're down the bottom, don't.
Now, hold on.
don't-
Who rustles around in your bag?
No, people do that.
Oh, what's your
You
bag?
mix
people?
with a much posher crowd.
Well,
When people eat Pringles, I never use my fingers to get out of the can. I try and kind of eat it in my face.
what?
Try and force my face down the Pringles tube.
I thought you just sort of opened your mouth, popped it in, and then just sort of shucked your head back, like.
That'd be another way. Yes, give away.
Yeah.
Consider that.
Yeah.
Next time someone offers.
How do you eat crisps, listeners?
Yeah, be safe out there, people, when it comes to your potato
Chips
snacks.
for Americans.
Or corn snacks. Anyway, as you can tell, when we don't have a guest, we don't know what the hell we're talking
Mess.
about. But we do have some lovely shout-outs for you people.
Yes.
Dan, would you like to go first?
You go first,
Oh,
Dan.
unless you want to play tennis. Let's have shout-out tennis. Dan,
Let's do
okay.
two and then two. Two and then
Okay.
two. Go on.
The Hoards of Surrey, the complete
Hey.
miniseries. I just mentioned it only briefly some minutes ago on the Comic House.
Hour ago.
Join Mike and the gang as their trudge hunt come to a dramatic end in this comedy adventure set in the British countryside. What couldn't you like about that? And
I like the Reach illustration. That's what I like about that.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
all win. Rory's fucking getting
Any
so
great.
good
See
at
that
this.
Silver Surfer he put online?
Yeah, it's
Okay, now it's
really good. It's got some
Yeah.
pages from that from the comic in this, and it looks fantastic. So I would go and check that out. Go back that because that's going to be fab. And the second one we've got Limits. Well, if you're the most powerful weapon in the world, but no way to recharge it. This feels like a kind of a classic golden age kind of Superman story. You know, where they would take up a premise and it would only last that one issue, but
Yeah.
what happened in that comic would be quite drastic. But next week, you'd be back to the status quo. It's kind of like a story like that, where you kind of what happens if this scenario played out, and it's really well done. The art by Lee Gaston's absolutely fantastic.
What happens if you get your balls caught in your zipper?
You have to be
That's a
very,
single premise, isn't it?
very careful.
Very careful.
Yeah. Never buy trousers with those metal zippers on anymore. Dangerous, isn't it?
Oh, God.
Danger.
Yeah. When you
You only
can,
have to see,
you can hear the clicking of the zip as it does that.
Oh.
Something about Mary plays this out to great comic effect, if my memory serves.
Yeah, is it? Yeah.
But, yes, over to you, Tony.
Okay, so thanks a lot to the 11 o'clock comics guys. It was obviously lovely meeting them in Charlotte, and if you're a listener, you'll hear me doing this week's introduction, which I'm very excited about because I was on the morning run and it came out.
That's
appeared in my ears.
Pull some strings to get that 80.
Yeah, babes. It's gangsters, aren't we? Players.
Yeah.
The Wiper is a new podcast drama that delves into the personal thoughts and history of a legendary superhero. Our buddy Kev Cooling is involved in this, and it is currently, I'm listening to it on Spotify. It's like little episodic kind of talking to a microphone kind of stuff. It's good, though. I really enjoyed it.
Didn't see this. I'll have to check this out.
You know what? How well do we know Kev? He never told us about this. What's going on, Kev? So I found it, and then I said, "Oh, what's this? What are you fucking doing here?" So I thought I'd give it a shout out. They're my two. Back over to you, Daniel.
I've only got one left.
Oh.
The Brewgooders Beer and Comic.
Oh, that's one of mine.
Podcast anthology comic. The Brewgooders have put together a showcase of comic talents to celebrate this year's Scottish National Comic Book Day, and that's charging towards the target. They're gonna putting out a comic as all good comic book podcasts should do.
Yes, yeah. Soon we started a fashion there, Kiddie Winkles, didn't we?
We've done one Comic Smell on to their third.
Yeah, but they're in the production of their third, aren't they? Yeah.
They've actually fucking buried us on that then.
We did 4 issues.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Take you back.
Should I do mine?
So, yes.
So speaking of the Brewgooders, I keep calling them Brewdoggers, and that's something you do at weekends, Dan. Sorry, it's Brewgooders. So I know David Cranner is one of them, and next Saturday I'll be at the 30 years anniversary event at City Centre Comics in Glasgow. Signing will be Johnny Cannon, David Cranner, Colin McNeil, Jim Stewart, and David Alexander. Also meeting up with Mr. Henderson. I think he's popping down. So it's from 1 o'clock onwards. If you go to @City Centre Comic for details. Also, big news this week: BAM is returning. Bath's premier small press show is returning. Watch this space for venue and date announcements. There you go. Them ones.
There you go.
Oh,
I don't have any shout-outs. That's where you got that.
Well, you were going to do that BAM one, weren't you?
Well,
You're part of the BAM Mafia.
The BAM Mafia.
BAM.
What? The BAM Mafia.
Right, comic idea, written that down.
Oh dear. Anyway, we got before we get on to the recommendations and stuff, we got a couple of things that we wanted to talk about.
Bubbling, aren't they?
Yeah, a lot of things bubbling hot, as my good pal Pato Banton would have said. Anyone who remembers that song?
You won't get a podcast for that reference this week.
No, but if you're about Pato and you want to come on to talk comics,
we'll have you on.
Yeah. And we can get the gossip about what UB40 are really like. Anyway, but on to more serious matters. Well, the first thing I want to bring up before we talk about some industry stuff, and even though I see he's just muted his mic, is...
I'm still here.
is to talk to Dan the Man Butcher, whose latest strip on Vanguard.
He takes no prisoners, this man.
He absolutely takes no prisoners with his storytelling, which is brilliant and amazing.
Oh, thanks.
And
he's the sort of bloke who'd make Kirkman blush.
Yeah. And obviously, like, there's absolutely no spoilers. You know, you've got to read Vanguard and catch up with it and stuff. But the question is, like...
He's nihilistic, Vince. He doesn't care anymore.
How do you decide, like, when it comes to certain scenes, how far to go in order to achieve the goals? Because, like, you have certain villains... And already, you know how I feel about a couple of your characters. And I mean this in the nicest way. I fucking hate them. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be, isn't it?
So you already had me at hello. And yet you're still, I mean, you're doing it's a little bit of a Game of Thrones where you're just layering on a little more of that vitriol for the reader. How do you decide, like, how far to take it?
This was a tough one because I wasn't sure... some villains killed some like innocent people in the latest one, and I wasn't sure whether to kind of show it. You know, when sometimes you see someone leaning off panel and they kill someone off panel, and you see like the blood spray on like in silhouette. I thought, am I going to show you that, or am I just going to show you what they're doing? I thought, what is this going to be? Cold, straight shot of these people getting killed. The sort of like,
right.
There's nothing glamorous about it. These people are fucking horrible, and this is what they're doing. And this is what they've done.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to kind of fuck around and sort of try and glamorize it in any way. Do you know what I mean? It's horrible. And I've got the Pendragon character who's kind of party to it, but he's not on board, and obviously he's going to be coming to see that in a couple of pages time.
That's that adds to the narrative, doesn't it? And to be fair, we're talking about, like, you know, a dark scene, but there are other comics I see that would try and do a dark scene and do it overly graphic. Do you know what I mean?
Okay,
like,
yeah.
You know, to the point of, like, you know, an Invincible scene where someone gets destroyed. It's usually pretty. Yeah, there's a lot of the red stuff and innards and stuff. So you don't, you know.
It's not been that bad.
Is that something that you think about yourself as well, like, as a creator, how comfortable you are? How comfortable you are, like, drawing or writing these sort of things?
I'm comfortable in as much that these are fictional characters, and I only do it to kind of to make the story enjoyable. It's still in service of the story. When
you kind of slip into the groove of writing it, don't you? Naturally from that, I would say.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you introduce a character and you think, right, in 3 or 4 issues, this character's going to die, and that's the only reason they're sort of in there. It's just part of the how the flow of the story's going to work.
It has to service the tale, isn't it? Really, I mean,
exactly.
I think, obviously, when it comes to... It seems like we're talking about villains every other sentence these days. But I think that's a good thing to think about, because some people just layer on the misery all the time. And we've talked about stuff before where sometimes it's so miserable all the time. You're just thinking, where is, where's the light at the end
light,
of the tunnel?
the contrast.
Yeah. And certainly from a villain's perspective, part of the joy of a villain is watching them get their comeuppance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, having a kind of a lame villain that has no threat and hasn't really done that much wrong is kind of like,
yeah.
So
or you do a really despicable villain and they just get,
I mean, the classic is fucking the bad guys in RoboCop. They're fucking horrible.
Yeah.
So when they get their comeuppance, it's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Do you know the way the hero
there's
deals...
a video game coming out about RoboCop?
Oh, apparently there is, yeah. I haven't messaged you about that yet this week.
Link me. Yeah.
The way that a hero deals with a villain, it has a huge implication for the personality and the way that you see the hero as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I think as well. And that's the way you deal with it as well, don't you? Heroes and villains, are shades of grey in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of what one would take as like a reason to do something bad. One would see a reason to kind of try and do some good.
Because I find that the Pendragon arc of this particular is fascinating to me. Because when you said he was switching up a little bit, I thought, well, this is interesting. Where's it? How is this? I mean, there's total justification for it, and you're getting to explore it more. But
I mean, would you throw in with people that you don't agree with just to get revenge or get what you think is owed to you?
The thing is, it's so easy to be like, stand on your soapbox and say, I would never do this. But who knows what trauma and loss and any kind of experience does to people?
But isn't throwing in with people you don't absolutely agree with just life?
Yeah,
I mean, we kind of do.
Yeah, we've done we've had 369 episodes.
Yeah. I know both of you, with your alt-right backgrounds, I'm joking there. But I've got friends who I don't agree with politically. I've got friends who I don't agree with in comics, and you have to, that's part of life, isn't it?
Yeah. To kind of achieve a goal, you might have to work with people that you don't particularly like.
What you're doing is times it by 1,000 and playing that as
as a sort of morality tale.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't mean to put you in the spotlight there, Dan. I mean,
that's fine.
obviously Vanguard should have a spotlight, and if you're not reading it,
we should do that every so often, shouldn't we?
But I thought, because I know off podcasts and stuff, we're always discussing the comics we're making and stuff, and Dan was asking us certain bits about the comics. I just thought it was a fascinating sort of topic to touch on.
Yeah, well, like I said, I wasn't sure. Kind of,
that's still playing on me. I still can't make my mind about that one. I don't know. I think it's got to be with you, man. You're the creator on that. It really has.
Yeah.
Almost who am I to, And
sometimes maybe
would you have done it like that, or would you have done something different?
Because there's so much before that. I don't think I could comment because I'd have to work my way through it as equal, do you know what I mean?
It wouldn't end up the same place. You'd write it different, so it would be different.
Yeah. I'm just very, very concerned about some of the characters in your comic.
Yeah, it's like reading The Walking Dead, isn't it? Someone's going to die.
No one's safe.
No one's
safe. But but we trust in the butcher.
Trust in the story. I know where I'm going with it, so it's all good.
Yeah, and that's the main thing, folks. He knows what he's doing. But from that to what should we touch upon?
Should we do the Big Bang thing?
Yeah, let's do the Big Bang. We're not talking about the Big Bang Theory, because that's rubbish.
God.
We're talking about the Fantastic Shop, Big Bang Comics.
Well, you kicked this off, didn't you, Tony, when you messaged us about the price for Diamond?
Yeah, so I can't give the source because it's a friend of ours, but we know that the prices are going up from Diamond. They've emailed shop owners and, mail orders and stuff like that to say they're going to have to lift the price by quite a substantial amount again. And for those, this is probably a very English or British specific problem because not only do we only have one distributor here, unlike the States who have, I think, 4 or 5, we also pay well above the odds. I know we did this, about 2-3 months ago, we did a thing where I compared American prices to English prices, didn't we? Yeah. So not only, even if you take sterling as it is at the moment and the dollar as it is at the moment, we actually pay about 30% more on a comic anyway, and that's going up again. So we pay a lot than the people in the US, and certainly a lot more than people who go with Lunar, aka Discount Comic Book Service and stuff like that. So there was two things that came out of that. We knew there was going to be a price hike. That came out one day, and I think almost the following day, guys, was it? We got this. Someone sent us this tweet, this sort of trail of tweets that Big Bang are going on about how they're very unlikely to be selling monthly comics out on the shelf beyond issues 1 and maybe 2, and that everything has to go through previews and has to have a before the final cut-off date. Which is what is it, a month?
So they said for issue 1 and 2. They won't be ordering any extra copies, and from issue 3 onwards, it'll be pre-orders only.
Yeah,
which is just
so there'll be no browsing stock on the shelf.
No,
it purely has to be through a pull list that you can order monthly.
I mean,
I have a heavy pull list in my shop. I have a large. You can't. It's rare that you could lift it out of the long box with one hand. My pull list every week.
Yeah.
It was again over £100 this week. But what I do is every week is I'll also buy stuff off the shelf. All due respect, I can't scan the whole of previews. And of course, the other fly in the ointment here is the other ridiculous factor to it is if you want to pre-order, you do it through the Diamond Previews catalog here, which you have to fucking buy. It's nonsense. How often do you go into IKEA or Argos and say, I want to order this out? And they said, you got to buy that magazine.
Got to buy the catalog.
Or anything. Fucking stupid.
Yeah.
It's nuts because it's such a niche thing, comic books, and this just makes it more costly, harder to do. I just can't see how long. This is what frustrates. I fucking had a moan about this, but remember a month ago, and people were banging on about how great Comic-Con the sales figures were and how comics are stronger than they've ever been, with millions and millions of sales. And it's
we're not seeing that here.
No,
we're certainly not seeing it.
Not seeing it in the UK. No way.
Yeah. And it almost seems like it's one of these things that people think if you're saying that there's an issue with comic selling and that it's too expensive, they seem to think you remember a comic scale stuff. Not at all.
No, not at all.
The slightest fucking nonsense. The only person I'm worried about is my wallet.
Yeah.
And having to pay a load more and actually have access to the comics that I love.
Looking at data and addressing data realistically and saying, look, there's an issue here is the way to go about things. Because then that's the first step in knowledge of the problem, of how to solve the problem. If you can't acknowledge there's a problem.
Big Bang are a good shop. They've got a good reputation. They sell a lot of good stuff. They've got good people working there. They put out weekly recommendations.
Social media is just promoting comics.
Yeah.
And just looking at the feed, it's people that read comics as well, and they love it.
But they can't seem to sell comics off a shelf because they're not returnable, those comics. There's no return for them. No. So they're trusting that we will go and get previews, look at it, and then get our orders in before. And often, have you looked at some of the previews? You can't see what's inside the comic.
No. It's a tiny little thing with a synopsis. Sometimes that's not even correct.
Yeah.
But why would he order through a comic book shop when I can just go straight order it myself?
Well, that's the worry, isn't it? And then people will wait for the trade. They'll wait for the app. I know it's almost 6 months, isn't it, on the DC app at the moment? But it's only 2 or 3 months on the Marvel app.
I get trades exclusively now, apart from small press stuff.
Yeah, and I it's going to get to the point where it's almost we're going to see a cut down a lot of even more comic book stores, I think, and certainly it is very important for the comic shop experience to be a positive experience and a great
it should be a browsing experience, same as it should be with the record shop, same it should be with all these sort of things. You've got to go in with them and have the availability to browse. If there's a comic's even worse than an album. You can't play an album looking at it in on the shelf. But a comic, you can open it and look at the art inside.
And certainly everyone's got their comic book shops that they love going to, and that's a fantastic experience for them. And we hope that all of them do well and survive over the next couple of years. I think it's going to be a tough couple of years, and certainly listeners, we are going to have even more comic book shop owners, hopefully maybe even the Big Bang themselves, get a couple of the guys out on the show just to talk about it, because they're doing such fantastic work and probably ice skating uphill in a lot of ways.
I mean, certain comics mediums, certain comics are selling, manga selling well, YA selling well. There's some sort of omnibus stuff that's selling well. There is areas of comics that are selling.
And it gets to a point where there's a lot of people going, I walked into this comic book shop and it's just nothing but manga. That's because a lot of that's selling, and you're not buying the stuff that you didn't buy it. They're pivoting in certain ways.
Give it a go. We gave it a go and loved it.
Yeah. So it is. I think.
I'll send you that fucking video from Razorfist this morning talking about on Desonay. So
he's a bit mad, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a bit mad. I remember fucking talking about that on this.
Yeah. They've been talking about that for 7 years.
Yeah,
I think some comic book stores may have to sort of pivot to be more of a bookshop experience, as
like the Gosh experience, isn't it? I won't name him, but I was speaking to a buddy of mine who was in London for a couple of days recently, and he said upstairs busy as fuck, downstairs quiet.
Yeah,
and downstairs is where they have their on the shelf books,
Yeah,
the big boys.
Yeah, which is.
But there's money in comics, and
it sounds.
People want to read comics.
Go on, Dan.
Go on. That fucking Eric July doing the Ripperverse. He's got like 3 million in pre-orders for the comic.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
but I think that doesn't translate to the UK. Just shopper.
No.
We're very UK. This is very UK specific what we're talking about here, because the number of comic shops over here is extremely limited. And even there's a couple of shops a few shops over here that don't have a diamond license. That don't get comics.
Fuck, man.
And I myself am probably if I'm going to buy single issues, it would probably be more digitally, or I don't know, a comic mart, or at a convention. I'll buy them direct from the people, because I found that when I go to a comic store, it was just if I come out with a pile of individual comics, half the time I could have bought 2 trades for that. So I found that over the years I switched to having a browse, seeing if there's anything there, and I might buy 1 or 2 issues, but most of the time when Orbital, God rest its soul, was kicking ass, I would walk in and usually walk out with a couple of trades rather than a couple of issues. I know that may sound bad, but that was the experience I thought.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? It's single issues are too expensive.
Yeah.
There's no ways about it, and they've had to lift the prices to be able to pay the creators and the distributors and all this. But they are far too expensive. Yeah, it's breaking us.
Essentially, like £5 for a fucking 21-page.
Not far off.
And it's just like that ain't worth it. It ain't worth it.
And we're
completely and utterly worth it. And we're all people with good jobs, and we can pay for it. And even us, we're finding it a fucking struggle.
I mean, it's different if I'm buying like a small press title, because it's a different kind of prospect. But the kind of the bigger ones, they've got ads in them, and it's coming from a big company.
They've got huge Disney behind one of them, and
I can't.
Yeah, they got less pages, more price. And it's just, and I mean, we're not.
And you got to buy the next issue. It's not like it's a a story on its own.
And we're not even like talking about the quality of these series. That's by the by. We're just talking about product right now. And like Big Bang say, they can't. If people are ordering stuff and then just not coming to pick stuff up, that cripples you. If people have these back orders and they don't pick them up, why?
That's your. Did you listen to the one I stuck up about the comic shop in America, about what the little amount is that it makes him earn a profit? No, well, maybe I'll send that to you this week and have a listen to it. I'll put it on the Slack. A couple of boys put it on there. But that's an interesting prospect as well. A sort of very outspoken comic owner from San Francisco basically lays it out. I don't find him a very easy bloke to listen to because he's quite ranty, but he basically lays out where his profit margin lies, and it's very small. It's a very slim one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give that. Yeah, sounds great. I'll give that a listen.
Yeah.
So, but you're right though. We can't afford to keep fucking supporting you for this. For 20 pages of story, paying that much. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And then it's as we keep saying, it's going to be an interesting couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
But all you lovely comic book shop owners and people out there, we love you and keep up.
Yeah, thanks for fighting the good fight, man.
Yeah, we really. I mean, I'd love to pop to all these. Normally when I hear about these comic book stores, I just thought, God, I want to be there just to have a browse.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm going up next week to Glasgow, is to see another comic that I've heard good things about.
So we can't make it to every comic book store. Not even Tony. But if you've got one in your local area that is really fighting a good fight, then please go and support them and help them out. So that's
you can always, without even going there, you can usually find them on eBay or on their site and buy stuff off them.
Because of, comics, especially due to the pandemic and stuff, people have had to think about other ways.
They've had to, like you say, pivot. They've had to pivot to being an online store. I know that they spent what was the name the lady we had from OK
Comics.
They basically
Danny.
That's it. Yeah. She spent weeks putting stuff on the website. That's why you got to do it.
Yeah, that's another comic book store that are really.
I know strange apparitions. Alex from there, he's put a lot of stuff on eBay.
There's two eBay shops I get my comics from. One's A Place in Space.
Yeah, I use them occasionally.
I can't remember because that Place in Space used to be down my neck of the woods in Croydon.
Yeah. I buy if I'm missing a single issue. I don't find something that part of a run. They're the best ones to go to on eBay. I find.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. They're constantly putting stuff on there. I bought a load of the Shang-Chi variants, much to my shame, off there. Yeah.
I remember going in there. Like all the comic book shops, they put on like, here's an issue from 1963, and it's like 500 quid. A couple of those numbers round. You're like, oh, look at that! It's fucking great.
They're worth looking at, aren't they?
Yeah. The comics are still like, because I get to see some of the sales at auctions and heritage.
Of course
auctions.
You do. Yeah.
And they put on like some of the money that the artwork or comics are making. Oh, fucking hell. That's real. Well, that's the trouble. It's a collector's market, and really I want it to move towards this being something people read. Yeah,
that's what it should be, mass market, shouldn't it? Yeah. That's what I want it to be. I want kids to talk about the Avengers every month, and
Yeah, and not the movies.
Yeah.
But everyone will be talking to movies because it's the San Diego Comic-Con this weekend.
Yeah, I'm so excited for the Agatha Harkness TV series.
And the Echo. Can't get enough of that.
What do you say?
Someone was mentioning like the Daredevil TV series has got a ridiculously long episode count, and I hope that's not the...
And it's called Born Again. They did Born Again, didn't they?
I don't... They kind of... In one of the things, they do break him down, don't they? He loses...
Yeah.
But it was like, it's a ridiculously long amount of episodes, and
like the Star Trek length seasons, isn't it? It's like that. Yeah.
But like they usually have like very little content to spread over it, and there's loads of filler fucking episodes. You know what I mean?
Jason Garrett was saying that, wasn't he, on there?
Yeah.
Saying, they had trouble filling 9 episodes where it was.
Yeah. Nuts. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not I think we fucking chronicled this between the three of us. My interest in the films and TV is just gone off a fucking cliff.
I get home and turn the telly off, read comics. That's what I do every evening. Yeah.
Or make him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, 3 old blokes.
Yeah. Moaning.
Do
a webcomic about 2 pages a week. You never have any fucking spare time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus.
Speaking of which, we saw DUI 2 this week, didn't we? It's looking good.
Yes.
I read it all in one sitting today. Fucking brilliant.
Yeah. The fucking really cover for issue 2 by Cliff is really well done.
Oh, so good.
Should sell itself. That is really good.
Yeah.
The
already started getting orders in.
And Eamon, if you're listening, you can't escape us. You got to be honest soon.
Yeah, good idea.
Talking about how you get on.
Why?
Phone was ringing there. You hear that?
No.
That wasn't fucking old Stuart again.
Who's that?
Fucking.
No, I think he's here now.
Where's the cat? I'd be able to say.
No.
Yeah. He's not here.
He's not.
Okay. Right, we got to talk quietly for the next 40 minutes.
Is he still there?
I think he might. Hold on.
He's got his hats on.
Hang on. No, he's leaving. Wait, he's leaving.
Good.
Right.
Good.
Anyway.
Yeah.
If you know,
you know.
You know. Is there anything else, gents, before we...
I think that's it, isn't it? I think so.
Well, we're just naturally rolling into this. It's like it's wonderful. It's just flowing, isn't it? I don't even need to say it's time for the recommends.
No, we're there already.
We're already here. Yes, mine's a bit of a funny recommend in a kind of way, but an absolute fucking classic. And I would just say this: who here has read Fangoria?
Yes.
Got on and off over the years. I have a look at it. Yeah.
On and
Is
off.
it still going, Fangoria?
They came back with some sort of. I think it was I don't know if it's still going, but they did like a company sort of bought it out, and then I think it was like quarterly or something like that, and it was a real special pre-order limited edition. Came in like a special bag and like lots of artisan sort of like it's proper. When you get those design magazines that cost a lot, but is a more of a coffee table piece rather than...
I get you.
Yeah.
I know.
I read the Dark Side magazine. I quite like that, actually.
But I always loved, it was always impossible to... Well, not completely impossible, but it was quite difficult to get over in the UK, especially like one after the other. But Fangoria magazine was like one of the major horror magazines of my time.
Yeah,
especially it started in like 1979, and that's when issue 1 first appeared, and then it had over 350 issues. But there was like articles about horror movies and all this weird stuff going on. There would always be like usually a gruesome image on the front. Sometimes a lot of the photos from the movies looked better than when you watch the movie. Do you know what I mean? I always thought, oh god, this looks so graphic, and you watch it in the film, just think, oh, that's rubbish. But what they are doing, what the Fangoria guys are doing, if you go to fangoria.com, they have a magazine archive section, and no word of a lie, they are scanning everything, every issue from issue 1, and they're free to read.
All right.
All the way from the back. And
wow.
You can see all of the covers, and it's one of those classic magazines where just look at the covers and pick your favourite. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's it starts off 1979 and it doesn't take long to get to like an American Werewolf in London. All the way to... I don't know what the latest one is, and it's probably quite a big undertaking to do all of this. And when you click on the cover, it takes you to one of those sort of... I mean, you can subscribe to a mailing list. Go away. But it has that... when there's... I don't know what they call the system, or the reader, when you can digitally read a magazine. Do you know what I mean? You pull the pages.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like what you get when you put a comic through Mixer. You can always turn a page, can't you? Like
yeah. So you read the entire magazine like that, and it's really great stuff. So if you had fond memories of Fangoria and that kind of stuff, and certainly for someone like me who was like this, I had a few issues. When I went in the comic book store, and it was like usually one of the more top shelf magazines in the comic book shop. I would pick up an issue and just sort of reread it.
I used to hide it in between the pages of Reader's Wives when I bought it.
Could we get caught with a copy of Fangoria?
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, it is one of those things that if you read it on the train, and the cover of it is someone getting axed through their head on the cover.
Yeah,
you'd be reported to the police for a weirdo.
Yeah, especially in the UK when people are like, oh no, video nasty.
Do you think that it will inspire you to do some comics work from what you've seen in it? Is there anything you've gone, oh yeah, it's a nice little idea?
I think a lot of the time it's certainly some influential sort of especially the imagery itself. There's great designs in there. I've always liked the way, in a way, the way that sort of magazine was sort of laid out. I don't know why. There's nothing like supremely stupendous about it, but there's a lot.
It's got its look, hasn't it?
Yeah, and like I know when I've been chipping away at it for ages, and like back matter for like Murder Road is for there to be like a homage Fangoria article to treat it like a real thing.
Yeah.
And when I design that, I want it to look like these articles look. So this will literally be a page for page influence for something. And I see sometimes, like especially with some horror comics, they try to replicate the look of that. Maybe this sort of resource is even better, because sometimes if you're trying to replicate something and you don't really have a reference, it doesn't work so well.
No.
Whether that be photo reference or just layout reference. A reference is extremely important. And also, if you just like horror, you can read these magazines for free and see what they're up to now. So
sometimes they do like films that weren't essentially a horror film, but would have horror type content. So you'd maybe get a sci-fi film in there that just has some gruesome shit in it.
There'd be a little sort of smaller picture, wouldn't there? A smaller inset picture of like the one gruesome bit of a film.
I wonder if Terminator popped up in there.
Robocop.
Must have. But yeah, so they're going to be adding a new issue, but it'll be one of the old issues each week. So you know what these archives are like. I mean, we've been talking about doing a comic book. Talking to some people who do some archives for comics and stuff, and we have talked about it in the past. These sort of archives are important. Otherwise, these sort of publications and magazines, whether it's been magazine or comics, they're just gone. So I think these sort of archives are extremely important, and they seem to be doing it well. So go to fangoria.com. That's my one.
Cool. Do you want to go, D?
Next?
Yeah, I've picked up another Mark Millar book, which I haven't read, but I think a lot of people already have, and it's Starlight, The Return of Duke McQueen.
Big fan of that, yeah.
And the concept being that imagine Flash Gordon, and he came back from Mongo and lived out his life on Earth. And then late into it, when he's an older man, someone comes back from Mongo and says, it's all gone fucking wrong again. You got to come back and help out. And he has to go back as an old man. That's essentially the premise.
Yeah.
It's great in as much that when he's back on Earth, the main character Duke, none of his family believe him that he went away to space and did all these things. So they treat him like a bit of an old fuddy-duddy who doesn't really know. But he's not a crackpot. And his wife passes away, and he's asking his sons to come round, could you do this, do that? And they're kind of like brushing him off and thinking he's not up for it anymore. Mark Millar does fucking such a great job writing this one. And the art by Goran Parlov is just absolutely outstanding. It's really well done.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm such a big fan of his work.
Yeah.
Man. Well, both of their work, to be fair. That's perfection, isn't it? Yeah.
I downloaded that June sketchbook he did, Goran Parlov.
Yeah, me too.
Two things he fucking love, and he's put them together.
His Punisher work's great as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Did he do, was it, what was he did? What Punisher was it? Was it the Soviet one? The Russian one?
He's done a few different ones, actually. Yeah, there's like a future one he's done. There's a few. But yeah, all just brilliant. And he's quite outspoken on Facebook. If you get a chance to follow him on there, he puts some crazy stuff up, old visuals and stuff like that. Yeah, so good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just every issue, this is absolutely fucking pitch perfect from where beats land, where issues end. And when you think like the old character who goes back, and everything's got that retro Flash Gordon feel, the tech. And you think, well, how's this old guy going to get on? And he's an absolute fucking beast when he goes back to this.
And again, going back to what we talked to Mark about, is about the older, the wilderness years of these guys, like he did with King of Spies and stuff. There's something to be said about the older guys. They've still got it in them. Yeah. The wisdom of them. It's interesting.
I think maybe because that story doesn't get told a lot of, I still like, it's played out a little now, but the older stories of like the superheroes when they're old people and what their life's like and stuff like that.
They're looking back on their lives. There's a bit of PTSD, there's a bit of, nostalgia, there's a bit of sadness.
I think that well is a little kind of fucking dry at the moment. Maybe leave it a little bit before.
Yeah. Well, King of Spies put fucking showed how the governor done it almost, didn't it? I think.
Yeah. Just absolutely spot on.
Cool.
Thematically, everything. Brilliant. So
good work, man.
I couldn't recommend this more this book. It's such a fun read. I fucking read it twice this week because it just blasts
masterclass in art as well, pacing and everything. It's lovely. Yeah.
Sometimes you kind of read a second, you think, I've got about halfway more to go on this.
Yeah.
And it's real. Not that it's a chore, but you're kind of quite aware of where you're at. On this, it wasn't. It just read. Oh, at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is where it's got to be these days. Why manga is so successful. You just tear through them, don't you? Yeah. Good.
So, nice.
Yeah. Tony.
Nice. So Tony.
Mine is an absolute fucking revelation. I'll be honest with you. I got very excited about this book this week. It was recommended to me by Tom Stewart. I'd seen the cover about, and Tom said to me, "Have you read this yet?" And I hadn't, so I ordered it immediately. And it's called Keeping Two. It's by Jordan Crane. It's come out of Fantagraphics. There was actually a delay on it because it was stuck on one of those. I think it might have been stuck on that ship that was stuck in the canal. In the Suez Canal. I think it might have been on there. Yeah. It's $24.99 English. It's currently $18.75 on that place called Amazon, but of course you don't have to go there. 304 pages size. It's like a little hardback book, like smallish sized hardback novel, but quite a long one. Part of it started as earlier in some mini comics, but it is described in interviews with Jordan Crane as taking 20 years in the making. Started in around the year 2000. It's a book that deals with death, both adult and child. So beware. There is also deals with themes of suicide in very real ways, and that's a real big important point of it. I'm going to make a number of times as I talk about it. So it's just a warning to anyone who finds that as a sort of unpleasant emotional experience. It's certainly in this book. It's a book that sweeps you up, like you just said there, Dan. It is a book that is drops you in the moment of these people's lives, and you are so caught up in it that you can't stop reading. It's actually quite a long book, but it will totally tie up your attention. It's from panel to panel and page to page. Honestly, it's one of the best things I've read in a long time. To not treat the reader as an idiot, and you knowing the dynamics of a comic as we do, a lot of people do. You're just totally in it. So what is it about? I suppose it's about mainly about one couple. There's a couple of different couples in it, but mainly it's about one couple and something that happens to them. And the other couple that feature in it, slightly less, is the grief and the arguments and the real life situations and how they deal with the loss of a child. So it's very sad. The main couple in it, though, are what you would describe as leading a very sort of ordinary life. It starts off, they're in a car arguing about petty nonsense, as we all do with our partners occasionally, about driving too fast, driving too slow, driving too close, what we can get from the shops. And they get home eventually, and one of them says, I'll do the washing up, because there's a big pile of it. They left when they took a short break. And he said, if you go to the shops and get something to eat and maybe a movie, So the female goes out to shops, and as time passes, the dude who stayed at home, he begins to catastrophize what has happened to his partner, and he begins to think, oh, maybe she's been murdered. Why isn't she answering her phone? Where is she? Well, maybe she's been in a car accident. Maybe she's been mugged and stuff like that. And it gives you real insight. But what it does, it doesn't say, it doesn't have him thinking, I wonder if she got mugged. It's just, it shows the incident, and you as the reader have to interpret whether it is real or it is imagination or an indication of what could maybe be happening or not be happening, who it's playing. It's very clever like that. The storyline about the child is just, it'll break you. It really is. But what throughout all of these is he shows the reality of the humanity in these people. It's not like idealized, it's like, woe is me, it's like some sort of Greek tragedy. It's about overreactions, underreactions, arguments, grief, the sort of stages of grief as well. In it, I read an interview, also Tom sent me this interview as well, actually. It's a comic journal interview that Crane claimed that this was also a love story, and I can really see that. I read it on the train yesterday morning at about 6:30, and then I got off the train and sat on the station and finished reading it, and it's still with me. It still genuinely is me. It affected me. It's how or what can happen or can be imagined or can be daydreamed is given the same emotional weight into it as what could happen. And I don't know if you've ever been sort of caught up in your own thoughts about what could happen, and you almost create something in your mind, don't you, that upsets you or pleases you or makes you angry or whatever it is, But what Crane does in this is he makes it so that every person has a balanced, so that you see from every person's angle, put it that way. And he does it fairly and with just utter honesty in it. He does it in a very interesting way. So for me, the real thing that I've come away from it feeling about or thinking about is what it's like for the survivors of people, and a dog at one point, for people who've died. And he does that cleverly. He shows the real implications, whether it be in the imagination of the bloke or not, or in real life for the family or not. He shows how we are affected by the loss of others. And what he does is he shows the dog and the baby and stuff as like almost like a ghostly figure that clings to you or is near you when you're walking or sitting in a park bench, or the baby clings to the arm of this man at one point, the sort of shadowy, ghostly figure. Really powerful stuff. And he really, Crane also, because, this is a long read. It's not a dense read. It's just a long 304 pages, But what he does is he takes his time. I don't know. It would be burning me up trying to finish a story, if I was an artist like this. But he just takes his time to tell it, and it's done very hauntingly, and it does it in a way that seems so natural. And the alternatives and the imagination he does is so well done. And you, like I say, you're never treated like an idiot. It's always done in a way that, oh, I see what he's doing now. You know, you're thinking about it as you go along. So much empathy on show, so much just mastery of it. And it's done with a real respect for the subject matter, the decisions of people who are on their own mortality especially. And it shows we've all got partners, you know, behind closed doors. I don't really know what you guys are like with your partners, what, you know, who makes the tea, or, you know, you have an argument about what TV channel to watch, or, you know, whatever you can do. Behind closed doors, we're almost different people, aren't we? And this gives you that little insight into the inner and the interior lives of these people, both in the relationship they share and also in the way they think about each other. And it layers it like that. It's very clever. And we don't really know what goes on in other people's noggins, do we? We don't really understand it, but he does his best to explain it in this. The art's interesting. So the art comes from that school, which is the lack of intricate, I like to call it. It's not, it's stylized, and from the outside looking at it, you would think, well, these people are just kind of, they're not overly drawn, you know, I'm trying to who I can compare about the faces aren't super stylized, you know, they're almost iconography that's used in male, female, you know, this sort of thing. But it's not, you know, was it Toth says, strip away what's necessary and what you're left, you know, is how you tell the story, and they perfectly tell the story. But you do get, you know, people like Steve Dillon and stuff. You know, I often describe him as being the best person I knew who could convey facial acting, for example. But the facial acting isn't a big part of this because the story comes out of it otherwise. But you do get a really good insight into how they're behaving and why they're behaving and what they're thinking. I actually genuinely, I'm going to say next year's, because we've just had the Eisners, haven't we? They missed out the good people in the Eisners, but we've just had the Eisners. And I say next year's awards season, this will be on a lot of lists. I guarantee you. It's like, did you guys read Asterios Polyp about 15 years ago?
No.
By Mazzucchelli. Real cartooning mastery. Really good. Get on it. Genuinely, you'll be missing out if you don't. Thanks for the recommendation. I'd seen it floating about, and you know, everyone says, "Oh, this is brilliant. This is brilliant." It almost puts me off when people are over, you know, go overboard. How good something is, but this is genuinely very good. Most comic shops should be carrying it. He did have a book called The Clouds Above, which got an Eisner nomination a few years ago. If there's any justice in this world, he should get it on this one. But heartbreakingly good, very, very good. Read it in one sitting. Find a nice, quiet place. Like I was on the train and read it. Keeping 2. I won't ruin the reason he uses the number 2 in the title, but it's an interesting other dynamic to the story. Keeping 2 by Jordan Crane from Fantagraphics. I think that's my one.
Nice one. Yeah. Sounds great to you.
Very good.
Quite a hell of a recommendation to finish off this week's show.
There you go. Good.
And we hope you enjoyed this week's show and everything that we talked about, whether we rambled, laughed, just made in-jokes that only amused us. Whatever we were doing, we hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything you want us to talk about, or any comics events, or anything that you'd like us to discuss in an upcoming show, or if you've just made your first comic, you want to send it
well done you.
Yeah, well done. And you can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @theawesomepod. If you do the Book of Faces, go to facebook.com/awesomecomicspodcast. There's a group on Facebook group called Awesome Comics Talk you can join, which is full of great people, as is the Awesome Comics Podcast Slack group.
Yeah, always reliable. We had another big draw off this week, didn't we, Dan?
Yes, we did Dad's Army.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. Absolutely fucking great. We're kind of like seeing who wants what we should do for the next one.
Yeah, I'm pushing for the Mighty Boosh, but I think I might lose out to a couple of other ones. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just you got to have a cast of characters of about 10, so everyone can have a crack.
Yeah. So if you want,
I was suggesting Peep Show, but there we go.
If you wanting to find out more about what that's all about, then join the Slack channel. Thank you for listening to us, whether it was on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, subscribe and leave a review. It helps us get the word out about this show to a whole new audience, and we never know who listens to this or when.
Yeah.
But if you did listen to the show, thank you so much. We really do it. We really do appreciate it.
And whoever the person was who stopped by the Tribute Press table and said hello to me today, let me know. Yeah.
There you go. See? Maybe they listen on Spotify, Amazon.
That event in Leytonstone, or it was. Sorry, mate, I interrupted you. Gone.
Unbelievable. Whether they heard our unprofessionalism on Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What other networks are we on, Tony?
We're also on Pod. I wonder if He-Man has to announce his pronouns.
I guess he does. It says in his name.
It's got it in his name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's the joke.
That's the joke.
Yeah, that's the joke. Come on, people. You understood that. But where can people find us online, etc.? Tony?
Neveronanything.com. Thank you.
Oh, he said a thank you.
Yeah.
You got to go now because he's being nice about it. Dan?
You can find me on Twitter at Vanguard Comic, and you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
Boom.
Nice. You can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. And follow my social media. And I'm starting a YouTube channel, and I can't change the name until I've got 100 subscribers. So count this as an official grovel. Go and
what is it
subscribe.
called at the moment then?
It's just like, youtube.com/001 blah 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 blah.
Oh, right.
Yeah, all of that.
Okay.
But apparently when you get over a certain number of subscribers, then you can...
That's mad.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So your first episode of your show went up on Monday.
I watched it.
Yes. Thank you.
I don't understand it, but I liked it.
Yeah.
What's it called again, Vince? For the people
safe space.
Safe space.
Yeah. Look for
So play because there's no safe space.
Exactly.
Not around the Jester Diablo.
No, there never is. But yes, wherever you are in the world, thank you very much for listening to us. And go forth, have a lovely week. We love you very much. Thank you again to Martin for joining us.
Yeah,
he's
definitely.
An absolute legend.
Cheers, dude.
One of the nicest people ever. We can say it now.
One of the good ones.
Yeah, he's one of the good ones. And from Dan, Tony, and myself, read loads of comics, make loads of comics, because we love you very much, don't we, Dan?
Yeah.
Tony?
Hello?
And as always, what should they do, guys?
Say awesome.
I don't know what to say. You're just getting... It
Get
just
emotional,
sounds so
aren't you?
good. Yeah, it's so emotional. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.